Right.
Planning for Craig Fox this morning? Well, Paul's gonna ghost.
I'm sending it to the New York Post.
Yeah, there you go.
See if I can get banned from Twitter.
Yeah, you would actually be the only news reporter on it, other than maybe the future one.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
Sometimes my head calls it and doesn't put a picture up.
Is that who 4041 is?
I don't know.
Joe, I had lunch with old Mr. Heary.
Did you?
You can't actually see who.
He's actually looking pretty good. He's not moving very
Not
well.
moving very good.
But he
Who
looks
do we
all
have,
right, you know.
who's coming, or who's
Week or so.
not coming, and
Don't see him very much anymore.
Who's
since
here?
He's not doing the title work, so.
That's
We
what
have
he
a
said.
quorum, we're just waiting on Ed. He didn't indicate whether or not he was coming. He tells me if he doesn't tell me, he will be here, so. You can start if you want.
I heard the doorbell, so maybe he's
we got a couple minutes.
Is, Bill, Lisa must be in the. They're not showing. I couldn't miss an opportunity to sit in this comfortable boardroom.
And you should. You're welcome.
Well, I also asked Dave privately if he wanted the board members to try to be present for these types of votes, and he said, it's up to you, but yes.
Yeah,
So, I
right.
mean,
I prefer it.
if all of a sudden there was 12 people coming, I would have gladly
We
sat in
got
my
per
office.
diem when we show up and no per diem when we zoom. Just check.
Well, I could have saved the 5-minute commute.
You get double your wages if you show up.
That's right. And you get to sample our wonderful coffee.
Yeah,
if you
although I
drink it.
get 0 of the wages when I'm not at work, probably. Yeah, I haven't caught on to that yet.
If you're like me, you'll make up for it.
I do, nights and weekends, it doesn't really matter.
Does Al still serve on the Dank board?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. They have a position open over there. I was going to send that resume over to them. When I
I
get
think
it.
Heffernan's the chair now. Tom?
No, it's,
Someone else? Maybe Tom's the past chair.
Town's past
Yeah, maybe he's been
Oh,
not here
yes.
for a while.
the head is now the guy that used to be a bargaining agent for the Teamsters.
Yeah, Fred Carter.
Fred Carter.
I only know that because I used to have to bargain with him.
Did you get the better end of the bargain, Joe?
One of your happier days, right?
I wouldn't call bargaining in Alexandria Bay over anything back when Sandy was supervisor. Happy days.
Well, we broke the ice with Fred and got the highway departments to pay for part of their health insurance.
Folks, I'd like to get started, so let's start and stand for the pledge of allegiance, at least for those who are here. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And he says we do have a quorum, which there's 3 of us here, so, and I know Phil's here.
Morning, Lisa.
Lisa's there.
Lisa, good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
This is a special meeting on October 15th of the Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency. We have some issues that we'd like to take care of. And I move right into our authorizing resolutions. So I have resolution 101.15.2020.01. The resolution of the Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency taking official action toward a straight lease transaction with Adams Renewables LLC, the company, for the purpose of acquisition, construction, installation, and equipment of a solar-powered electric generating facility in the town of Adams. Can I have a motion and a second for further discussion on this?
I'll move.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm gonna open the floor for discussion.
I think,
Questions?
yeah, the main question I have, I know I asked for quite a bit of data that was supplied yesterday, so apologize my ignorance for having left in the day to look at it, but Normally, we did skip loan review for obvious reasons on this, and it's not a criticism, but I would have asked a number of questions to indulge me. They probably have the same number of questions in all of them, so if we spend a few minutes on the first one, it'll answer all the others for me. So kind of going through the numbers that are on here, and I did have a meeting a while ago with Lyle on the cost benefit program that we use, and it's difficult at best. I'm probably being polite, Lyle, for how you described it to me. And it might not be the most well-designed for, say, a solar project or a project of this nature. So I kind of went through and crushed some numbers as well. And I don't disagree. There is a public benefit for this. So I want to put that out there first. I see a public benefit. I don't see 7-to-1, frankly, but whatever. I'm not going to argue all the overall numbers. What I kind of have for the Energy Committee is, if I look at straight numbers here, I don't see how we get to a 50% or less tax abatement. So Paul, Bill, and I don't know if John's on. Just looking at the straight numbers, if I trust what's on this document to us to see what the tax would be without pilot, and I see what the pilot collected is, and to me, it's not 50%. I know there's a reason for it. I just want to kind of understand why, number one. And then number two, this one I don't have a question on, the construction jobs being disclosed. Some of the other ones, the man hours that are being disclosed, there's no way in fact that the full-time equivalents add up. So just there's some things that I'd like to correct for the record. So I think my first question is, we've already gone through this in the Energy Committee ad nauseum, and I don't want to waste a ton of time, but the Energy Committee find their rationale that this meets the normal 50% tax abatement, and we followed all the right procedure. Kind of look at wherever Bill is. I don't know where you are now, but since you're here, Paul.
Okay, Bill, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks.
First off, when you look at Lyle's analysis on all these projects, you'll see, at least I noticed, that the pilot payments that are included in the resolutions are different than the pilot payments in your analysis, which we've probably made changes since then. So the numbers in the analysis that show less than 50% is less. The other thing is, if you look at his analysis, you'll see that we use the appraised assessment from the OIA projects to do the analysis. We all know that the incentive packages for the developers dropped at the end of last year after OIA's appraisals were done.
Okay.
So we've tried to plug the numbers into the same analysis that Mr. Zukowski did to come up with it. So if anything, we're projecting a higher full taxation number than I believe would exist. Okay. At the end of the day, I gotta get back to Lyle's analysis. And the other thing is, Lyle's analysis doesn't include any value for special district taxes, which would be levied at 100% of whatever the assessor puts on as assessment, which would increase the taxes collected.
All right.
Now, I can tell you this, that this is just, we're trying to get to a good faith 50% to meet our UTEP.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends what happens with assessments going forward. You'll see that this uses the same assessment every year. We know that these projects will produce less electricity in year 15 with the same amount of sunlight than they did in year 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Lyle's taken the most conservative approach to projecting taxes to get us to there. So I believe I'm comfortable that we can defend it on the information we have, that it's in compliance with our UTEP.
Yeah, and excuse, again, I've had this for 6 hours, you've had it for 6 months, so that's why I'm kind of asking the question to make sure I figured all that due diligence was done, but I appreciate that. I think the only other question, which I indicated, Lyle, when we do the cost benefit analysis, some of those plugins, only on Adams Renewable and Black River Solar, they disclosed other grants that they're receiving from the government and the state. Are those put in as public cost?
No, they're not.
Should they?
No,
Well, they probably should be, but I'm limited as to what I can put into the program. The program, as I said, is not designed for solar.
Mhm.
I'm sure of
I know you gotta do some tweaks.
and I have to do as much as I can, but there are limitations. And one of the big ones Paul mentioned is the appraisal. If we get an appraisal on those OIA projects that are out there now and should be pending, I can go back and rework all of this.
See, for me, I'm kind of using I'm using 50% of the full construction cost as the ultimate appraisal. I know that's not perfect either, but that seemed to be something that stuck in my mind from our way back
I
discussions.
don't know what the assessors are doing on these projects.
But I mean, even having said that, I don't dispute the pilot number itself within, $100 here and there. I mean, they're all relatively, that all was kosher to me. The part that I couldn't see for straight math is I could not come to, this is the pilot, if I divide by 2, that's the payment received. They weren't matched up.
No,
Paul just eloquently described all of that, that's fine.
Because there are elements of it that I just have no way of getting into the program.
And then, so for what you just said, I kind of just crunched some quick numbers of, we're receiving a pilot fee, and then there's a public cost of what's abated, we're receiving a tax, and then the state's abating some tax. So I kind of just did a little simple balance sheet. And I know I'm missing things, because I'm not adding in for the jobs created, I'm not adding in for materials and equipment bought locally, because I don't know what they are.
Right.
So I just simply did 10% of labor, 10% of material for spillover. And in my raw analysis, let's call it that, I'm still always coming up at least 1-to-1. I'm just trying to do like a gut check, like I would have done had this been given to us months ago.
Well, you're doing it as an engineer. This is being done by economists.
And I appreciate, so I just wanted to, knowing that I don't want this board or this agency to become a footnote in another audit. We've done a deep dive. There are, as I said, Adams Renewable and Black River, they disclosed that they received some public subsidies, state and federal. The other ones didn't disclose them, whether they received them or not, I have no idea. But I mean, to me, that is a public cost. Now, how much of it cost, you put it into full value. So as I said, my raw analysis is if you're close to 1-to-1 and there's jobs created and tax benefits, fine. So, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to throw it out there because we didn't really have a very thorough discussion on
it.
Right.
This discussion.
Yeah. So, I think, as I said, I went through each of these individually. I've added in the other public benefits received, where disclosed. I do, as we get in later on, some of the smaller projects later on, the jobs they've disclosed in their application there's no way, based on the man hours they disclosed, our full-time equivalent is 1,920 hours. So they might have disclosed 20 full-time equivalent. I think they meant part-time equivalent. It's either 3.5 full-time or 20 part-time. So there's just some numbers I'll correct for the record as we go. Ultimately, aren't those the barometers we could claw back on based on what's on here?
Yeah.
So I'd rather have those corrected as we.
The construction jobs, I don't think so, Rob.
Okay.
But on any full-time jobs related directly to the project going forward, we can. But I believe there aren't many of these that indicate you're going to have any full-time.
Well, the other ones did indicate, which whatever, take it face value. But the next if the first 2 next ones are going through, their construction jobs disclosed actually tend to make sense. Now, what doesn't make sense is how they broke the project cost up. They must have a subcontract for the installation labor, because when you look at some of the smaller jobs, you've got labor plus equipment plus infrastructure. Here it's just 2 big numbers. It's the solar panels and everything else, and fine. So they're subcontracting the everything else. I get that. But taking all of that into account and trying to use some ratios and the fact of a standard wage, what actually ends up working out when you look at the smaller jobs, just as a footnote, the smaller jobs are looking like it's about $21 an hour average cost for the man hours they disclosed. Not a terrible wage, and it's a good job that we're creating here, so that's a very positive thing. These 2 bigger jobs would work out to like $150 an hour if you take it face value, and I don't know that they're not paying that, but I'm highly suspicious that would be what's being paid. So if you use the 20 to 25, you get back to a normal number of man hours. And I actually think they might be creating more full-time equivalent construction jobs than they've disclosed. So again, I took that into account. Again, as an engineer, not necessarily an accountant, but we have to trust the data that's presented to us by the applicant. And, so anyway, on this particular one, that was my only very long-winded bunch of questions. The other ones, I might have one or two just kind of corrections or citations.
Well, as we move forward and get a good handle on appraisals, I will probably go back and redo these.
It would be nice for historic
Well, and I think it's important that we get
use again.
an accurate report in the file, as accurate as possible. It will never be 100%.
Mhm.
But when they come into audit, they're going to look at the file. And if we can support what's in the file, it'll still get written up by the state.
Yeah. And once you redo those, why don't we bring those back to, we could even bring them to loan review.
I think it would be
Just
good for
review, so
between
that-
energy
so that
and
we
loan
don't-
review, let's get a formula. So another thing I've neglected to mention in Adams and Black River Renewable, that they disclose, it's a public benefit. They've disclosed the estimated savings of energy for the users in that area.
Yes, they did.
That's $1.1 million benefit on Adams' job, offset by some federal subsidies. And again, I put it in at the full value, but I highly doubt that that's the right way to analyze it. So, but they're close to 1-to-1. So there's a benefit and then some cost, and I don't know what that some cost is because I'm not intelligent enough.
It appears on all of these, however, that the benefit exceeds the cost.
Correct. I think they're all
No matter
above
what.
one, they're all above 1-to-1. I don't think they're 10-to-1 as maybe reported on some of these documents or 7-to-1, so I just wanted to maybe quell that exuberance, but I do believe they are a public benefit, a net benefit, and good for the community in many ways, shape, and form. So I just wanted to put out that I'm not being negative Nelly, I'm just trying to be, I'm trying to be the engineer.
Well, I think you're clearly indicating that if they weren't a benefit, you probably wouldn't approve it.
I would hope the board would have that discussion.
Right.
Frankly, Rob, if they weren't a benefit, staff wouldn't bring these to your
I-
attention.
I find, and that's why I asked for the data, normally, we would have had a discussion a while ago and answered all the dumb questions.
No such thing as a dumb question. Might be a dumb answer, but.
Yeah, well, there are some dumb.
Paul, you had something you wanted Marshall to put up?
Yeah, there's just one thing in all of Lyle's analysis is I think it's a graph that shows something that we've talked about. If you want to put it up, Marshall, it's a graph showing up, the impact going forward in years. And it just shows that the impact really disappears. There's really, other than the benefit from people that have signed up and are receiving it, and someone that may be doing some remedial landscaping to keep the grass down, there's really no offshoot jobs that are gonna come from these projects. And I think that illustrates really well, that's really not a zero there because most of them have a part-time person listed. So I just thought that showed very, in a graph format, that there's really not going to be any employment coming out of this or offshoot for local businesses and stuff.
Well, I think what's wrong with this graph too is the fact that you are receiving a pilot payment annually, and there is an estimated value of $74,000 a year on this job for energy savings. So those two things combined are $150K a year for the 15 years, and they're not showing that either. I don't know if you did a net present value, shoved it all the way to the front. That's what I assumed this graph was showing.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so what, it was just, it left off 2 through 15 basically, right? It left off any,
Yeah.
it left off any benefits
Well,
of 2
the
through
major
15?
benefit I think you find in the beginning of these projects is the spin-off benefits to the community
Mhm.
as a result of bringing in 100 construction workers and things of that nature, purchasing, locally building it. Then after that, it's built, and if they have goats, I don't know how you get that into the formula to calculate the benefit, but beyond the first year,
Yeah.
there isn't much.
I guess my only point is I don't analyze any of these as being 0 and 2 through 15. I agree that
No,
it's
I don't-
higher.
I don't
I agree
think
it's
any of
higher in
it's
year
there.
one.
There's two basic elements that we're not talking about in my personal view that we should. One, these projects inherently increase the tax base. That's part of what they do. Two, it is part of public policy in the state to try to minimize the amount of fossil fuel injection into the atmosphere. And this is all part of that effort to try to do that. Now, how you value those two elements, I really don't know. But I will tell you, that's where it starts from us. How does it impact long range our community?
I don't disagree with either point.
You want to answer any questions from people that have zoomed in?
Yeah, of course. Do we have any questions from our Zoomers?
No, I mean,
We're good with the graph now, Marshall.
I would just point out, when you're looking at it later, you'll see on the GSPP one, where the benefit being those tax payments show up on the graph, most of the scale is just because, as Rob noted, $150,000 taxes, but that scale left like in millions of dollars, whereas when you look at the cost benefit analysis on the Champion project, the scale is smaller, so that actually shows up more on the graph.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the resolution? On the resolution, roll call vote, please, Peggy.
Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Ed, I don't think joined us, so he's absent. Paul?
Yes.
Moving right along. Resolution 10.15.2020.02. It's a resolution of Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency taking official action towards a street lease transaction with Black River Solar LLC, the company, for the purpose of acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping of a solar-powered energy generating facility in the town of Luray. May I have a motion and a second?
I'll move.
I'll second it.
Discussion on this resolution.
I think my only just affirmation from Paul or the Energy Committee that the same level of scrutiny you put on the first one is put on this one? Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay. That's all. Simple question.
Anything else?
Paul, I think you explained this very well, I couldn't hear real well, but to Rob's question about the 50%, as you mentioned, we used the appraisal from the first Oya project for what a 5 megawatt project appraisal was. And just for myself, I plugged those into that same spreadsheet just based on the direct proportion of kW or megawatts per megawatt. And each one of these that we're going to be talking about, after you put those numbers in the spreadsheet, does come out to the 50% or better.
Good. And also I noticed on this spreadsheet that we were given, it had the full 5 megawatt assessment value. So I think the without pilot value was inflated, so the abatement value looked much higher, but I personally made an adjustment and tend to agree that it's very close to 50%. And the pilot payments in the resolution are higher than what are on this document, so it pushes up the other side. So I mean, it kind of just made all of the other adjustments after I stumbled through the first one.
Okay. Anything else in this resolution? Roll call vote, please, Peggy.
Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Ed is absent. Paul?
Who?
Paul?
All.
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Lisa?
yes,
Resolution carries. Thank you. I have resolution number 10.15.2020.03. It's the resolution of Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency taking official action towards a straight lease transaction with ASA Clayton, New York, Solar One LLC, the company, for the purpose of acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping of a solar-powered energy generating facility in the town of Clayton. May I have a motion and a second on this resolution? Gentlemen?
I'll do it this time.
I'll second it this time.
Discussion on this resolution.
I think my only correction from both the application and this document, the applicant has disclosed 9,600 man hours. Our document says 1,920 man hours is a full-time equivalent job, so when you divide those two, you come up with 5. They put 20 full-time equivalent, but it would be 20 part-time equivalent, so I think they just filled the wrong column up. Just wanted to correct that, so it's 5 full-time equivalent or 20 part-time equivalent are the jobs that would be equivalent to the 9,600 man hours. And again, it's that $21 an hour average rate based on the the installation value they put there. And Paul, to be a broken record, same level of scrutiny on this one and
On all
same
of- Yes.
on all of them, okay.
I questioned the total output. For some reason, I wrote down whatever, 1.285 as the total output. And I think in all the calculations, there was a different value. Can somebody just confirm what the output of that plant?
Yeah, I'm looking at their application, if it says it there. Is this one, Kevin?
Kevin? Is he representing Clayton?
Is he representing this one? Yeah,
Lionel's analysis is at 1.25.
correct. I'm just trying to see if it's written in the actual application.
Our file indicates it's 1.25 megawatt output AC.
Okay, that's how they
help.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else on this resolution for this project?
No, sir.
Roll call vote, Debbie, please.
Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Ed is absent, Paul,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
Resolution carries. Thank you. I have resolution number 10.15.2020.04. The resolution of Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency taking official action towards a straight lease transaction with GSPP 24658 County Route 47 North LLC, the company, for the purpose of the acquisition, construction, installation, and equipment of a solar-powered electric generating facility in town of Clayton. Tongue-tied today. Tongue-champion, I'm sorry. I am tongue-tied. Motion and a second on this resolution.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion.
Just a couple things. When you look at the two projects as separate, of course, they're on the same parcel. The tax disclosed on here is the total tax of the parcel. So like some of the things should have kind of been done in half, or I analyzed it as one job. Frankly, it was easier to put it all together and you still got a good public benefit. 3.5 full-time equivalent jobs, 14 part-time equivalent, not 27 construction jobs as disclosed on this document in the application. And I'll have to take at face value that it's for each, not for total. And I think even after you combine it together and then look at the pilot payments the without pilots would somewhat decrease. I can 50% on this one, so I don't really have to ask you that question, Paul.
I wasn't going to answer.
I know you weren't, but whatever.
I think when you get to these smaller projects, another thing by using the appraisal is there are some fixed costs, like the interconnect costs aren't dramatically different between the larger and the small. This is such a small project.
Yeah.
That they have a higher cost for certain things. And so that's important to point out, some of the fixed costs dealing with grid. Oh, sorry, Bill.
No more questions.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, can I just bring attention to the board that during the public hearing, Supervisor Ferguson raised the question of an assignment because there was an assignment from one company to another of this project. And I don't know if Matt Moses is on the horn this morning or not, but after deliberations during and following the public hearing, Matt has indicated to us that the assignment should not prevent this agency from continuing its approval process. The representative of the developer, who also attended the public hearing, later offline talked to Supervisor and indicated that they had general agreement from the town attorney that the assignment would be approved and was legitimate and all that. So that's when Attorney Moses said that we would not be, shouldn't be any issue from us moving forward with our approvals. But I wanted to call your attention to it because it showed up in the public hearing
Do
process.
you know who they're assigning this project to? You're basically saying this project's been sold to another company.
Basically, and that's my understanding, Paul. I've not seen the paperwork yet. It's being processed. So
Isn't that pretty much standard for this industry?
it's very standard. I think Mr. McCall said unless they have 3 different names, it's not a legitimate solar project anyway. So,
Well, that's what happened with Oya.
Oil was sold, so
yeah,
after the fact.
it's the way it is. But anyway, according to Attorney Moses, that should not be an impediment for us to take these steps.
Is that the same for both of these projects?
This is the only one that Bruce raised as a question.
So he means north and south.
Well,
Split in half.
yeah, this is north. I assume it's to both,
I would
but
assume it's both.
he did not say and did not reflect that in the public hearing, so I could not make comment on that.
Okay. Anything else on this resolution? Roll call vote, please, Peggy.
Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Ed is absent, Paul,
Yes.
Bill,
Yeah,
Lisa.
Yes.
Resolution carries. Thank you. I have resolution number 10.15, 2020.05. It's a resolution of the Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency taking official action toward a straight lease for the purpose of the acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping a solar-powered electric generating facility in the town of Champion. Can I write that? Yes.
I'll move the resolution.
I'll second it.
Discussion on this resolution.
Just whatever I said in the last one, just the jobs were not reflective of what is actually, the man hours reflect, and a lot of the numbers are for the full parcel of land versus, I guess, presumably half. I mean, the project shares the same plat, so.
Anything else, anyone? On the resolution, roll call vote, please, Peggy.
Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Ed is absent, Paul,
Yes.
Bill,
yes,
Lisa.
Yes.
Resolution carries. Thank you. We have one other item on our agenda today, and it's really in regards to the possible corporate park entrance enhancement.
I would move we leave the regular session and an executive session to discuss the possible acquisition of real property or interest in.
I'll second.
Joe, do we need to identify any more about that?
That's enough.
Okay.
Just, everybody just wait a minute, because I have to stop the stream in the other room, and, just give me a quick second, okay?
We got a vote
to go in and.
This
determine-
could
Oh,
take a
we haven't
few
done that.
minutes.
Yeah, it should, I mean,
Because we have Zoom, Peggy, roll call vote on this, please.
I don't know how long.
Did
Could
you
be
disclose who's
15,
staying
20
for the
minutes.
second one?
Boy,
Not sure.
or,
So
I would
I may have
amend
to-
my motion to allow the inclusion of any LDC members and staff.
And council,
and council.
See staff.
I'll still second it.
Would I maybe be able to
Okay,
shoot a call?
Yes.
Maybe about what had happened?
John,
Yes.
and is absent, Rob,
Yes.
Rather than sit here for,
Yes.
I figure I'm,
Bill,
yeah.
Yeah.
Going on today.
yeah,
Yes.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay.
We are now in executive session.
That's it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Kevin McCall. I'd just like to thank you